Welcome to Salzburg in 3 days. I am Deborah Guthrie and welcome to Deb's Travel Vibe. When my husband accepted an assignment to work the 2 NFL games in Germany, I was super geeked and immediately knew I was gonna go with him and began planning right away. One of the things I knew I wanted to do was to take a trip to Austria in between the 2 games and see the filming locations for The Sound of Music. I even had us rewatch the musical at home. After game 1, we had some free breakfast, which we did every single morning at the hotel. We had free breakfast at the hotel, called an Uber, had the Uber take us to the main train station in Frankfurt. It was super busy, even in the early morning. And we took the long train ride to Austria. It was brutally boring, and while cool to not have to drive and save money, we weren't able to venture off anywhere to any of the cool castles, and the trip just really was too long. If I had to do it again, I would totally drive. We were super stoked when we finally got to Salzburg, of course, but also super train ride tired. We took a taxi to Getreidegasse, the old town area. We didn't really care about cheap rides. We wanted to get to the destination the quickest way possible. And we wanted to get out and stretch our legs after having been on that train ride so long. Once we got to Altstadt, the historic town of Salzburg, we knew we were in the right area. I absolutely love historic buildings, and so this place had it all. It was tough to find our building once in Altstadt because we could not communicate where our Airbnb was to the driver. We don't know the language at all. But he did drop us off close as possible to our apartment, and luckily our building was just around the corner and we were able to find it. And from the looks of it, when we arrived by car, it seemed like one big empty square. Can't really describe it, but we soon found out that wasn't the case because there were all these alleyways. And so once we got up to our apartment and ascended our 3 flights of stairs in our 1376 building, we made our way out for a bite to eat, and we were starving. After a 7-hour train ride from Frankfurt to Salzburg, we were super hungry. I mean, luckily we had a little bite to eat in Frankfurt. Pretty much that was it, so we were really hungry. And so one of the reasons I chose to stay in Altstadt and our quest to do the Sound of Music tour was that this is a historic area with lots of stuff to explore on foot. I'm a big fan of walking everywhere I travel. It's the best way to feel the vibes of the culture and the people in the area, and our stay here was 100% the right choice. This trip, the only plans we made were our Airbnb apartment built in 1376, like I said earlier, and the Sound of Music tour. We figured walking around would lead us to discover the historic sites, meet locals, and happen upon cafes I'd want to become addicted to, and restaurants we'd hopefully like, as we're not that fond of beer and pretzels bigger than our face. But we are super into espresso shots, so I had plenty of those. We ended up at O'Malley's Irish Pub, which had a great view of the Salzburg River, if I'm saying that right, in the back of the restaurant. The pub was quite expansive and apparently a party pub, but we wouldn't really know that as we went there to eat lunch. The food was okay, seemed a little bland to us, and it's not a place I'd go again, but after this experience, we did read menus outside of restaurants, and the rest of our eats were more fantastic and added to our we'd visit again list. Not that that exists, basically, it's in our brains right now. After eating, we took a little stroll along the Salzburg and in and out of alleyways in between buildings to check out all the little shops. Man, there were some big price tags on everything that we saw. I had just come from Paris and Italy, and I thought the clothes I saw while window shopping here in Altstadt were far superior and some of the finest clothing I've ever seen. High quality material and superb tailoring. I was blown away. We ended our evening trying to figure out how to use a washer-dryer combo down the hallway from our apartment. But it was in a foreign language. I kept texting the Airbnb person, and what we figured out was that it was all on me because I overstuffed our clothes in the dryer. You can't do that. After losing out our battle and our egos, we went to Cafe Tomasali. It's a famous cafe. Got a bunch of sweets and ate every single bite that we took back to our apartment. It was absolutely delicious and a great way to cap off the night. On day 2, our main thing that we were doing was the Sound of Music and getting that checked off my bucket list. This is one of my favorite musicals and brings fond memories of my mom singing off tune while watching with us kids when we were growing up. Being super pumped, we arrived early, couldn't wait to get up and go. We walked across the river, which is about a 10-minute walk to the bus tour meeting area from where we were staying. Checked in, grabbed a bite to eat at a very non-assuming corner cafe nearby. We thought about investigating where to eat, but decided we'd be way better off just staying someplace close and eating there. And we were super glad we did, as the latte and croissant was delicious. We even went back for a sandwich after the tour. The original Sound of Music tour was everything I hoped for and quickly became one of my 10 favorite tours. I mean, maybe the #1 tour I've ever been on. We sang songs on the bus at the top of our lungs. Our tour guide was super engaging and funny, and he provided fascinating behind-the-scenes stories and historical context between the musical and Austria and the characters. And we stopped at all the main filming locations, from where Maria sang Confidence in Me and the kids hung from the trees, to the gazebo where Liesel falls in love, to the opening scenes where the hills come alive, to the Abbey, and to where my favorite things was sung. I even got to sing a little bit myself. It was just so much more than that. I mean, including the church they got married in. I literally felt completely immersed in part of the film. My husband loved it too. We'd do this tour again and again for sure, 100%. When we booked the tour through Viator, we booked a combo tour that included the underground salt mine tour. We wish we hadn't done this, as after Sound of Music, we were so tired. We went from a nice comfy bus to a packed close quarters van. While waiting for our second portion of our tour to begin, we did go back to that same cafe and shared a sandwich. We then squeezed in for the van ride to the salt mine. I got to sit next to the driver in front, so there was a good view on the way there. While the tour was good and well operated and it was super cool to see the salt mines, we didn't really like putting on the dirty overalls they supplied, and we had to saddle up behind one another to get down to the salt mine, so I didn't like having to saddle up behind other people. And then afterwards we just felt like we were cattled through the gift shop, and the whole tour was just to sell stuff to us. We wouldn't do it again. Did we regret it? No, we're glad we did it, but we probably wouldn't do that again. When we got back to Salzburg, we went to Patricio Felino near our Airbnb apartment. It was literally around the corner. The dining was close. We didn't know anything about it except it was an Italian restaurant inside a cool looking historic building. As tired as we were from touring all day long, we were even more hungry. So we climbed the steps, sat down, and had a lovely meal. We shared a charcuterie tour reminiscing about our fantastic time doing the Sound of Music tour. My husband had the spaghetti bolognese, and I had the saffron risotto with chicken and peas. It was amazing. We both agreed that my dish was the best. After that, we were tired for the evening, and we knew we had to leave the next day, so we knew we had a pretty busy day on day 3. So we woke up on day 3. Actually, I did. I woke up, my husband slept in, I walked around, went to a super cool cafe called New Cafe, and they had a waffle cone that they pour espresso into. It was a waffle cone espresso chocolate combo. I mean, it was amazing from start to finish. I mean, the presentation alone was super cool. It was an espresso experience like no other. And after I indulged in what I think it's called a waffleino, I went back to our apartment to shake my husband's tail feather to get him up and around and packed. I was super caffeinated and ready to go and get all packed up so we could go walk around and do some last minute historical architecture self-guided tours. So we spent quite a bit of time doing that, including exploring the St. Peter's Cemetery and catacombs. Some of the filming of Sound of Music was there. I just love cemeteries, and I've always felt super peaceful and relaxed in them. So we spent a lot of time in there. Once it was time for the funicular to open up, we walked over to the funicular to go to the Hohen Salzburg Fortress, but unfortunately the funicular was broken, so we had to walk up, and it was just too much of a climb for us that day. We made it to the entrance, which is about a 20 to 30 minute walk or so. Well, that walk proved the superior way to check things out, as we saw many beautiful views of Salzburg and the mountains along the way. I mean, it was just such a lovely surprise. So we're kind of glad the funicular was broken, because otherwise we wouldn't have seen those views. So this trip to Austria was a beautiful experience. Even if we didn't get to go inside the fortress, it was a beautiful experience. The only thing I would change up if I went back is trying new restaurants, of course, because you always have to. And I would go during Christmas time, because they were setting up for all the Christmas markets there. So Salzburg, yes, old world charm vibe. I would definitely go back again. So once we were done and got climbed back down from the fortress, we went and got our luggage, took it out of the Airbnb, and when we left, we met this amazing local and had this fabulous conversation with her. And then we headed towards the train station and had a fantastic meal at the train station. I mean, one of our favorite meals on our entire trip. Our next video on Deb's Travel Vibes has us on our way to Munich, where our feet land us on an unexpected path. So be sure to subscribe and tap that bell so you get notifications of our videos. Thank you.